A young man was sitting at a stoplight in downtown New Orleans one evening when the lady in front of him was distracted as she was going through some papers on her front seat. The red light changed to green and the young woman did not move. The young man was a bit put off by this and gently bumped his horn to remind her that she was driving and not at the library or at the office. But even with the gentle reminder, she did not move, and before he knew it, the light turned yellow and then red again. When the light turned red and the young lady still did not move, this young man began screaming at the top of his lungs and beating his fist on the steering wheel. He was shocked when he heard a knock on the window, and he turned to look and saw a policeman with his gun drawn, tapping on his window. The policeman told him to step out of the car and handcuff him. As he was putting him in the back of the patrol car, the young man, still in disbelief, began to protest. "You can't arrest me for screaming inside my car." The patrolman looked at him and told him to be quiet, and then got into his car and drove him to the police station. After 2 hours in a holding cell, the officer came in and told the young man that he was free to go. The young man told him, "I know that I cannot be arrested for screaming and throwing a fit in my own car. You haven't heard the last of this." The police officer calmly responded to him by saying, "Sir, you were not arrested for shouting or throwing a fit in your car. You see, I was sitting directly behind you at the light. I saw you screaming and beating your steering wheel, and I said to myself, what a piece of work this guy is. But there was nothing I could do to him for throwing a fit in his own car." He says, "Then I noticed the cross hanging from the rearview mirror, the No Jesus, No Peace bumper sticker, and the fish symbol on the back of your car. And I thought, this is not his car. It must be stolen. And that is why you were arrested." Character. I wonder why you ever stopped, or have you ever stopped to realize what character means in today's world? When I think about character, I think about honesty, kindness, in the face of hostility, and doing the right thing for the right reasons at the right time. As believers, we are called to a character that is far above and beyond what this world sets as its standards for good. We are called to God's standards, and we are called to walk in the light of Christ. John tells us that God is light, and in him there is no darkness at all. 1 John 1:7, we read these words, "If we walk in the light as he is in the light, we have fellowship with one another, and the blood of Jesus his Son purifies us from all sin." You see, we are called to a higher standard of living when we have been washed by the blood of Jesus. Much like the police officer in the illustration saw all the visual signs displayed by this man on his vehicle and in his vehicle, showing that he was a Christ believer, but his response to the situation he was in were far from the characteristics of Christian living. You see, what he was displaying for the world to see and what this police officer saw were completely different, and they did not match. One of the most important characteristics that John wants us to understand from this passage of Scripture is that God is light, and that light cannot be known unless it is seen. God has been revealed in all manners to humanity, both directly and indirectly. And God has used many variations in the revelation of himself to his creation. In the Old Testament, God showed himself to the Israelites on many, many occasions, and in many, many different forms. Ultimately, the children of Israel rejected him despite his continual revelations of himself to them. You see, when the Israelites left Egypt and started their pilgrimage to the Promised Land, God showed himself to them and led the way for them. Exodus 13:21-22. By day the Lord went ahead of them in a pillar of cloud to guide them on their way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light. Neither the pillar of cloud by day nor the pillar of fire by night left its place in front of the people. God was always watching over his children, but the sad fact of the matter is that the more God showed himself to the Israelites, the more they seemed to seek disobedience and anti-God behavior. The fact that God had directly showed himself to them lost its luster, in effect. The truth is that if God were to show himself to our nation today, people would respond in the same manner as the Israelites. Many in our world today have become so accustomed to the darkness in the world around them that all too often they fail to see God's light in the world. Well, not only did God show himself to the Israelites, but he also revealed himself to those who were in tune with the heart of God. And one of these people who experienced the light of God was the psalmist David. Even though David failed God, God was always faithful to David. And even in the midst of the darkness, David could still see God's light shining directly and directing him back to God. David writes these words in Psalm 27:1. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? He testified to the faithfulness of God. David knew that as long as he could see the light, anything that threatened to harm him would fail because God was the salvation. Now, it wasn't only in the Old Testament that God showed himself to his people. He also showed himself personally to his people in the New Testament when he sent Jesus, the light of the world, to bring salvation to the world. John 1:1-5 says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. In him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. Time and time again throughout the New Testament, Jesus showed himself to his people, but sadly, many of them missed his revelation. Even those who were close to him, like the disciples, were slow in understanding and recognizing that Jesus was the long-awaited Messiah. Thankfully, they were able to see the light and were instrumental in spreading the gospel to others so they could experience Christ's light. Then we have the religious elite, the Pharisees. These men were well educated in Jewish law and tradition, but were unable to understand that Christ came to bring light into the darkness of the world. The only thing the Pharisees saw when they saw Jesus was that he was a threat to their laws and their traditions. So they spent most of their time plotting how they would stop this light from shining. The thing that amazes me most about those who missed the message that Christ had come to be the light in the midst of the darkness of the world was that he didn't try to hide who he was or why he came. On several occasions in Scripture, Jesus clearly claims to be the light. John 8:12 says, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. Even with statements like these, still many choose to live in darkness and fail to experience for themselves the light that Christ offered. I always think of Paul. Paul is a great example of a person who was so steeped in tradition and law and would have failed to see the light had he not become blinded temporarily by the light. Paul was a very educated man, very zealous, obedient to the law, and a great persecutor of the early church. Paul was on a mission to stop this Christian movement from expanding when he encountered the light of the world on the Damascus road. Because he saw the light, Paul goes from persecutor to one of the greatest advocates of Christianity, all because he saw the light. We live in a generation where people often fail to see God and are oftentimes so consumed by the darkness that they encounter in their daily lives to see even a glimmer of light. Have you encountered some of these people in your life? Darkness has overtaken them. They can't see any light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. It seems today that people only believe what they can see. People today think how great it would be if God would just show himself to us. I've heard it comment, why doesn't God just show himself to us? Why doesn't he show himself directly to me so I can see what he looks like, so I can believe? You say, I'll have no problems with faith and belief if I can only see him. Say, I would obey him, do what he has called me to do. I wonder, have you thought that this morning? Have you been in the darkness and thought, God, show yourself to me today? I want to tell you this morning that if we stop and if we look around, we will see God's light shining in the darkness of the world, even today. You see, there's something amazing that happens in one's life when we invite Jesus, the light of the world, to come into our life. There's a change in our actions. There's a change in our talk, and there's a complete turnaround that occurs in the person's life. Many times the change is so drastic that family members, friends, and co-workers notice the difference without a word being said. That is what Jesus, the light of the world, wants to do for everyone. You may be asking yourself this morning, where's the relevance in this sermon for me today? What can I take away this morning? The relevance for the believer to hold on to is that being a light in this darkness, in the dark, is not somebody else's job, but is ours. Jesus passed the torch, so to speak, the writer says, to first his disciples, who handed it down to their disciples, and so on throughout history to today. Today we are called to disciple people so that they can go out and tell about Christ in the world that is hungry for the love of Christ in their lives. However, we cannot make ourselves the light of the world. Jesus says we are the light of the world because of our relationship with him. The God who said, let light shine out of darkness, made his light shine in our hearts to give us the light of knowledge of God's glory displayed on the face of Christ. 2 Corinthians 4:6. God speaks in the light of Jesus into our hearts, and his light shines so powerfully through us that we're like stars in the universe that point the whole human race toward real life. Philippians 2:15-16. This is a portrait of discipleship. Jesus, who is the light of the world, recreates us into light of the world. We are light not because of anything in ourselves, but because we are in union with the light of the world. And he calls us to follow after him. He says in John 8:12, whoever follows me will have the light of life and will never walk in darkness. Our focus must always be on the light, humbly trusting Jesus to reveal the light through us. Matthew 5:16, Jesus instructs us to let our light shine before men. What about us this morning? Are we letting our light shine in the communities where we live? When we interact with our families and friends and our neighbors, do we let our light shine? Or do they see and observe actions and responses similar to the police officer did in our earlier illustration? Do they see something completely opposite? Do we show up in our uniform and our Sunday's best on Sunday? And when we hang it in the closet Sunday evening, we forget about it? Being a Christian is a 24-hour job. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Doesn't take a break. Can't take a break. Can't run away and hide. No matter where you go, people should see that we are the light of the world. That we had an encounter with Jesus, and because of our encounter with Jesus, our light shines, and they see Jesus through us. How is our relationship with the light of Jesus Christ this morning? Are we spending time daily with him in prayer and studying his word? Friends, we need to be mindful that people are watching us. Many of them know that we claim to be Christians. We live in small communities where everybody knows everything for the most part. When they look at us, they're looking to see that our walk and our talk are consistent. My prayer is that we are always living our lives so that others can see Christ's light shining in us. It's my prayer this morning. It's my prayer for myself daily that as I go through this community, as we interact with other people in the community and outside of this community, even if we're walking in the mall in Carbonear, or if we're in St. John's and we interact with people They see something different than us. I pray that's your prayer as well. People are looking to see Jesus in their lives. We want to sing a chorus this morning as we spend some time in reflection. Just turn your eyes upon Jesus. Full of his wonderful face and the things of earth, and grow strangely dim in the light of his glory and grace this morning. Are we letting our light shine? There's a lot of darkness out there. Too much darkness out there. And we need to be that glimmer, that flicker of light that when somebody looks at us, when they look at our lives, when they look at who we are, they say, I can go to that person and I can talk to them. And they know Jesus. They have an encounter with the light of the world. Let's turn our eyes upon Jesus so that we can be what he's called us to be. So that we can let our light shine for him. Let's sing this chorus together this morning. And if your relationship with Jesus is not what it should be this morning, if your light is not shining like it ought to this morning, come. Commune with Jesus this morning. Just talk to him. Ask him to draw you closer to him so that you can shine his light in his glory. Let's sing this chorus together. Turn your eyes on Jesus. Turn